Hello and welcome to a very special Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh, and last March I had the chance to be on the ground for Pigeon Shrine FrightFest. This was a fantastic and terrifying strand of horror at the BAFTA-qualifying Glasgow Film Festival. Now, for fans of all things scary, tickets have just gone on sale for Pigeon Shrine FrightFest London. This is a flagship event in any horror enthusiast's calendar and runs from the 21st to the 25th of August. So check out frightfest.co.uk for the full lineup. A little later in the episode, we chat with comedian and magician-turned-filmmaker Ali Cook about his fantastical mermaid show at the Pearl Comb. Then we hear from Scottish filmmaker Paul Boyd, who returned from LA for the international premiere of his darkly comic haunted feature Scared to Death. But first we're joined by Greg Day. He's FrightFest's co-director. He's a seasoned film and television publicist and has worked with the likes of Dario Argento, of George Romero. He has represented Columbia Pictures and has served as the head of entertainment publicity at Channel 4. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
A pleasure.
So FrightFest has been going since 2000. So tell me about its origins and how it's grown.
Yeah, well, Paul, we have to thank Paul McAvoy for the creation of FrightFest. He spoke to Alan Jones and said, why hasn't the UK, or maybe he was thinking more of England, why hasn't England got its own horror film festival like Sitges or like Biff or like Fantastic Fest? Why haven't we got one? So that question sort of stuck with Alan and Paul, and then they recruited Ian Rattray, who was then a film distributor. And the three of them came up with FrightFest. And then so basically, I think there was 6 or 7 films at the Prince Charles Cinema the first year. I went along because Alan asked me to go along, and he's a good friend. So I kind of went along, and I felt a bit kind of out of it because they all seem to know so much about horror films, and although I was a horror fan, I didn't really kind of have a cerebral approach to it. But anyway, I had fun, and then Alan in 2002 asked me if I would join them in order to promote the event. So I came on board in 2002, by which stage we'd had Christopher Nolan, Eli Roth, Edgar Wright, Ron Perlman. They'd all swung by, and so I felt that there was definitely something in the air about what we were doing, and essentially what we were doing was just giving horror films a cinematic platform in the middle of London. That's all we were doing in a way, but it caught on. So by 2004. The program had sort of become a 2-day affair, but we needed to move because the numbers were growing, and the Prince Charles just couldn't. We just couldn't stay there. It was like a crush every time a film started. So we moved to what was then the Odeon West End, which is now that luxury hotel, the Londoner. We moved there, and then obviously into 2005, we moved spectacularly with George Romero attending, and we organized a zombie invasion of the square. The police arrived because a section of the zombies, including a pregnant zombie, stormed into McDonald's, and the police were called. It all ended amicably, but so in a way, that sort of illustrates the sort of USP of FrightFest. It's kind of semi-organized. It's always been chaotic. We've always had strong guests, and the reason they like coming is because they feel it's cool. They're part of the audience. There's no VIP treatment. We don't have green rooms. We just don't bother with all of that. So in a sort of way, they get direct contact with the fans, and then they find that they enjoy the experience, that because the fans aren't there to dislike the films. A typical FrightFest reaction to a film they don't like is just sort of, well done, I hope you do better next time, and it's sort of There's no real bitchiness at Fright Fest about films. There have been occasionally a couple of films we've shown which have created a lot of laughter in the wrong places. Um, the infamous screening of Tolpa from Italy comes to mind. Um, yeah, so we've just grown and moved around the square. So from the Odeon West End, we went back across to what was then the View, and then we moved to the Odeon uh, Cineworld, and now we're at the Odeon Leicester Square. So we can't go any. They're just that is it. So we're now camped at the Odeon Leicester Square. We have 7 screens there, and we have the 2 screens of the Odeon West End, the sort of Lux, the 2 next door to the Radisson Hotel. So that kind of feels like our home for however long we can continue. Essentially, after 26 years, there is nowhere else to go unless we went into a stadium environment, which I know our fans wouldn't want. The key to the success of Fright Fest is that we're showing films in a cinema that will not ever be seen, likely to be seen in a cinema, or if they are, then it's the first time that it's being shown, and we don't want to change that. So that's what it is.
And tell me about your audience. What is like how does a Fright Fest audience differ from your like run of the mill mainstream film festival?
Well, when Guillermo del Toro turned up, he said, "My God, this is like the Woodstock of Gore." So I think he looked at the audience and saw a kind of mixture of music fans, film fans, aged between sort of 18 and 60, all dressed as if they were at a horror film festival. Very relaxed, very informal. I suppose what maybe where we differ is I think it's reflected in the 4 of us, because we run it very much through our own personalities. We don't really encourage much bureaucracy or officialdom. We don't tick boxes. We don't get public subsidies, so we are diverse, but we don't have to be. So I think it's that informal approach where, in a sense, I remember saying once on stage, we will continue doing this as long as you continue coming. So it's very much down to the audience to keep Fright Fest going. So if you see, it's not industry driven, it's fan driven. We initially, I'd say at the beginning, we would have probably been 70% male, 30% female, but now it's not 50-50, but it's getting there. More and more women are now, as more and more women make horror films, there's more and more women coming to see them. I don't know I don't know kind of which came first. But certainly I think there are more female horror filmmakers who are just as driven and can be just as nasty and brutal in the films they make as men. And I think, interestingly enough, with with the emergence over the last 10 years of more female horror filmmakers, the men have become more mature and better at making more interesting horror films as well. There's less misogyny. Obviously, there's still the sort of quota of slasher, stalker, serial killer, torture, porn films, but they're getting less and less as part of the diet. There's not so many. Um, so I think horror itself, as a genre, is changing, and so our audience reflect that. So it's younger, and it's more gender balanced.
Definitely. You see that in the audience in Glasgow. Tell me about the films. What are the stories that you like to tell? Do you know now like, do you get a sixth sense for the type of films that will go down well? Are there any hidden surprises as well that people maybe don't react the way that you think?
Well, I think okay, so the first thing we try and do is think globally. So Alan is particularly good at spotting anything coming out of South America. Paul is very good at spotting anything coming out of Asia. And obviously, the four of us have more of a kind of hands-on when it comes to UK and Ireland. Europe, yes. Europe's a bit up and down when it comes to horror. France occasionally make good horror films, and then they go through this cultural phase of going, oh, horror films aren't fashionable. We're not making any because most films are funded in France. So again, it's sort of, you know, of the French directors making films that they can get money to make rather than obviously Pascal Janier, who directed um, Martyrs, is an exception, but then he's sort of kind of been sucked into that sort of French institutionalized way of making films. But anyway, to go back to, so basically, yes, so we want it to be as globally representative as possible. Each film we feel has to have a signature. It has to feel that the person making it is an individual, that they're not repeating too many tropes. In fact, that they're not repeating themselves at all in the film as much as possible. The technical standards are up to that. That's very important because we're in the Odeon Leicester Square. I mean, it's a massive screen. Even the smaller screens, they're all Dolby. They're all Dolby. Any film that technically is under par will just be found out. So we don't. Any film that technically doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good it is. We won't show it. So that there has to be a technical excellence. But I think most of all, there has to be a kind of individuality, a sort of bravery, and a kind of vision that the film has. And it doesn't have to be out and out horror. It could be psychological horror. It can even be sort of eco horror, romantic horror. It's got to have, as long as it's sort of got a voice and that we know it'll engage with the audience, because we do like discovering new talent. That is really the main part of our USP. But at the same time, we go to the studios. We always ask them what they've got that they can give us. Over the years, we've shown Chucky, Universal films. We've shown Warner Brothers films. So in a sense, we try to give the audience as wide a range of experiences as possible, because the weekend pass holders are in the main screen, so they have 25 films which they paid to see in the same seat. So they've all got to be the big films. They've all got to be technically up to scratch. They've all got to have something really that you would expect to be given a cinematic release. Then we have the discovery screens where films can be smaller, more boutique, lower budget. Acting doesn't have to be that great. And that is one of the problems that I think young filmmakers have, is casting. That is where I think they always fall down in one way or another, because they either cast their friends because the budget they got, or they just miscast, or as directors they don't know how to handle actors as brutally and as ruthlessly as you have to. So but those films fit into a discovery environment because the audience is going to see the discovery screens are making allowances for things like that. But we still want them to be interesting. We still want them to be shocking. We still want them to be diverse. We want them to represent as many different people in society as possible. So whether we've shown sort of surreal sci-fi from Korea there. We've gone to Yugoslavia for their usual slasher in the woods, because you get Serbian Croatian films always are in woods or up mountains. It's strange. The landscape they very much connect horror to mythology, and which is obviously in the wild. So you get a lot of those sorts of kind of sinister supernatural embodiments of horror. Um, yeah, so ultimately that is it in a nutshell.
Of the films that were watched, were there any surprise reactions that
I always knew that The Last Sacrifice would go down really well because of that interesting blend of true crime documentary with a sort of, you know, a, a very affectionate trope of British horror, which is obviously the folk horror genre. So I knew that I thought that was I knew that would get a very good reaction. I think interesting enough, I thought House of Ashes would have got a better reaction than it did, because it was a daring film to put it and because it was low budget. I know she couldn't do everything she wanted to do, but I thought it was a genuine attempt to kind of make something scary and kind of intellectually illuminating. I think possibly because I did say I asked Izzy whether she'd watched The Handmaid's Tale, and she went, "Oh, no, 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 I never watched it," because she didn't want to be too influenced by it. But I said, actually, that's what it reminded me of in a small way. Um, so that didn't go down as well as I thought it would. Um, I Yeah, look, I mean, Heart of Darkness, the making of the Final Friday. Look, if you you're gonna either love it or you're gonna hate it, right? You're either into that kind of horror film or you're not. So that went the way I thought it would. Um, no, I think the short film showcase was for me the 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 most positively surprising. Um, and I thought that was interesting because short films can be hit and miss, but I think, as you said earlier, the choice was good because they were all very different, and I just was positively, and it kind of made me think, to be honest, that the Glasgow crowd is kind of a bit younger than the London crowd overall, and I felt a lot of I think they kind of tapped into the new talent trying to kind of do something and break out, because I think that's what's inspirational to younger audiences, is to see something and go, "Oh, wow, I really enjoy that. I could do that." Because they could see that it's because it's short. I mean, it's deceptively difficult, as you know, to make a short film, but it's the gateway. It's the initial gateway. If you can get sort of 10 to 20 grand, you can at least try something. Um, so yeah, so that I kind of said to Helen, "Oh yeah, if we come back next year, because we're not sure what's going to happen now that Alison's leaving, we must definitely do the short film showcase again."
Yeah, it was so much fun. And in terms of say, so the people making their films now are thinking about the films that they want to submit to you in the future, what would be the advice that you'd give?
Stick with it. The, get yourself, actually, the best bit of advice I could give is don't do everything yourself. Get a producer, because if you're a creative person, you're going to find it really difficult to make horrible decisions which involve other people. Get yourself a producer, let them do a lot of the work, delegate, so that you can just concentrate on making that script and the shooting script as and blocking it as absolutely tight as you possibly can. I would say that even if nothing happens with it, don't give up. I'd say it's really important that you don't be hard on yourself. You did it. You actually made a film. It actually got screened. Forget about who liked it, who didn't like it. Do it again. Learn, listen, but repeat. Do it again. Do not give up. That's the most important thing. If you knock on doors enough, they will open. It's very important that. And I think for young people to kind of have the confidence to go out into society and get a film made. It's really important given that they're part of the COVID generation and they've probably got used to thinking they do everything online. You can do some things online, but if you want to make a movie, you've got to go out there and you've got to find people to work with and you've got to create a team and you've got to inspire people. You can't do it any other way.
Those are true words. And thank you so much for chatting with us.
Pleasure.
Now, you might know him for his tricks, but Ali Cook brings a whole other world of illusion with his short, The Pearl Comb. So have a listen to the trailer here.
There's been a lot of controversy surrounding this investigation. But what we do find magical is that you healed a boy of consumption. You may be the only person to do so successfully. What we want to know is what treatments you...
No treatments. It's a gift from my late husband. Carry me out to sea, and I will make you rich and glorious for life. Mine, mine, forever mine. Farewell, farewell for years of 9. In return for the comb, your blood will be mine. Mine, mine, forever mine.
So thanks so much for chatting with us.
Oh, thanks very much for having me.
You have come to filmmaking from a very interesting route. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you here.
Well, I am actually a professional magician. And when I was younger, I knew quite a lot of actors and I found them really irritating. So they're like, oh, hi, oh, hi. They're also like happy and super showbiz. But I was lucky enough to be a magician on British TV. And my producer was the guy who invented Peep Show, Andrew O'Connor. And he also invented Derren Brown, the concept of Derren Brown. And him and one of the cameramen who worked on the show, they said to me, you should do acting. And then I had no interest really. I was just wanting to be a magician. And then because they said it, I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I was in a comedy club because I do stand-up as well. And a guy who was at the NFTS asked me to be in a short film. And that's how it all started. So it was a very, most people kind of like, this is what I'm going to do. Whereas for me, I already had a thing that I was doing. So very unusual route.
And then to make a film, then that's a whole other skill set. I would say arguably there's a lot more in common in terms of performance with acting and that. What was that like? How did that sidestep happen then?
Well, I think I've made 2 short films. In the comedy world and in the magic world, we're very used to just writing and inventing our own stuff. So, a lot of my friends, I used to go to the Edinburgh Festival a lot. We're just used to writing our shows. So the idea of that sort of work ethic we're quite used to that. And the first short film I had called The Cunning Man, my friend Zoe, who is actually a TV documentary maker, she heard about this short film competition and the theme was magic. So she went, go on then, write me a script. And then I was like, ugh. And then I wrote one and we got in and we won it. So that was the first sort of foray into script writing, although I had written a lot of sketches for the magic shows and for the entertainment shows. So I was used to writing.
And then but even the technical skills of and I will say that like it's even a different kind of writing. Like there's a very distinct visual language for film that isn't quite the same where something is set up and character based or like it's a different language, even though it is like a similar, I mean, it's all storytelling, but it is, how did you find that? Like in terms of like getting the drafts down, was it again, just something that you had that instinct for, or was it something that you found?
Well, I did do a load of writing courses. Originally, I went to the Second City in America because I wanted to be an improviser. That was my dream, really, was to be an improviser. But there was no... I loved all the guys on Saturday Night Live and Will Ferrell and all the guys from Ghostbusters. And that was like the dream thing. And I did study scene writing there and sketch writing, but I wouldn't say necessarily screenwriting it's it's obviously more heightened. So that was my background. But when I came back to Britain, there was no scene in Britain for what I'd call real improv. So that's when I just went into stand-up. But I had sort of had that training of writing a scene. Although I do agree filmmaking's different, but I do think as a magician, you're used to telling the audience with images what's going on. And you're also very used to misdirecting the audience. Because all a magician really does is direct the attention constantly throughout a show. So I think that I might have intuitively learned about directing from there.
That was your premiere, was it?
For the Pearl Comb, or it was the UK premiere. I was simultaneously in Finland, and that was the European premiere. And that was literally, I think that was about 8 hours before, and then we did the FrightFest premiere the next day. So yeah, it was almost at the same time.
So that's so exciting. So you hadn't, that was your first time watching that with an audience. So
it was actually my second time, because I did do a cast and crew screening, and just the crew on the Pearl Comb was so mammoth. That I was quite a fair old audience actually, but the very first screening, the cast and crew screening, it was really nerve-wracking.
The production value was so high. Talk to me about getting together the budget. Like, it's something that, I mean, you've built a sort of, even in the mind, and you do it with illusion in a way that's really evocative and very, very clever. But you build this underworld, undersea world, and in a way that, and you create that reality. But again, like when you see it on screen, you've created it for us and the viewer, but in a way that I mean, the production design is incredible, like throughout the whole thing, and the effects are so like tangible and realistic feeling. But yeah, talk about what was your budget on this, and how did you find those beats?
Well, the budget, it's a high-end short because of the VFX, and I tried to be very mindful of the VFX, and also because I'm a magician, I do quite a lot of in-camera stuff as well. And then there's a real secret in magic, which is to mix methods. So if you're sawing a woman in half, you don't do the same method 3 shows in a row, because you want to keep the audience confused. So it's the same, I think, with VFX versus SFX. So one minute you're seeing a VFX mermaid tail, and then the next minute you might be seeing an SFX of a blood effect. And then the two is what one hopefully will cancel the other out, so it seems more realistic. And then there's another thing in magic called don't run when no one's chasing you. So you don't need to overprove a VFX. It should just be ever present, I think, and also undersold, if anything. So again, for people who haven't seen the film, there's a mermaid within that film, but we only ever really show the mermaid's tail the once, and then the rest of the time you'll just see a slither of the tail, but we all know it, and once we know it, the audience can assume it. So I think that, and then in terms of the actual beats, say for creating the underworld, I did have a great production designer and I had great VFX people, and I just think the way to create it is just by having a lot of chat. There's no real magic formula. I think just chatting a lot, and also working with someone who just seems to get you. It sounds overly simple, but I think that really is the big secret. I found with both the production designer, Izzy, and Koala, who did the VFX, we just managed to sort of gel straight away.
And yeah, I mean, the whole thing, it's so strong, like that you're brought on this journey. The worlds are built so well, but the writing is so sharp. Like, actually, even to go back to the script, like, did this take many drafts?
Yeah.
Was this an idea that that you were figuring out, or that, like, what's your process like in terms of getting it there?
So my process is really painful, but I come up with things very quick, and essentially that is the idea, and then I have to decide whether it's worth pursuing. And then once I've I think that bit I can come up with pretty quick. So the hardest thing on the Pearl Comb was coming up with an ending for it, and then once I kind of got that, I had the essential gist of it. And then this is what I really do. I will ask loads of people to have a look. And most of the time, I know that what they'll say, if I have this reaction, I don't agree unconsciously, but everyone will have that 5% where they give you an idea or a critique which is actually worth taking on board. So I will ask, say, 8 people who are completely unrelated to have a look and just objectively say, have a look, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. And I got that from, the actor Gene Hackman, where he would say to someone, tell me when you're bored, tell me when you're excited, tell me if it's too loud, tell me if it's too slow. Really, really nuts and bolts. If you ask your dad to read your script and say, tell me when you're bored, that's the sort of advice that you want. They don't know how to fix it, but they're telling you where the issue is. Yeah.
That's amazing. So you have that idea, you work it backwards.
You're not going to believe this. One of the producers is actually trying to ring me.
Yeah.
I've not heard from him.
Third money for the feature film. Have you thought about it as a longer form project? Is this something that you're like, is this something that was a thing in itself, or is it almost like the step? Like in our funding, it's like, the higher budget short films are always like your pre-feature film.
No, actually, no. I wish I could be that organized, but for me, something falls into my head, and then I keep thinking about it, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, I think I could actually make this. It is designed to show people I can handle a high-end short. So I am showing it to producers who make sort of fantasy and dark thrillers and horror, that I'm used to handling, complicated shoots and also retaining sort of character and story. So I'm using it for that, but I don't really intend to make this into a feature. I always tend to think that a story is a story, and sometimes a story is 100 pages long and sometimes it's 5 pages long. That's how I wish I could be more sort of calculated, but I'm not. Yeah.
Or in terms of, I know it sounds like it's not of this, but like it's the tonal element of it, or to go like, oh, it's this is the world, or this is the reality, like that, like this is a beautiful self-contained story. But in terms of so fantasy and horror would definitely be your leanings.
Yeah, and I think they are definitely my natural leanings. I think because I'm interested in magic, and there are also a thing that sometimes gets a bit overlooked. There's quite a few jokes within the story when you're watching, and that comes from performing on the stand-up circuit. That I will throw in, although it's not comedy, I will throw in amusing bits throughout. So it's that sort of combination of the two. I quite like folklore, and then I like to sort of tell those stories in an unusual way.
And in terms of your characters and
Yeah.
placing them in that world, would they be people that you'd sort of find as you go through, or when you're writing them, do you like to put together a composite? Because again, these are characters in this very heightened world, but there is that sort of, yeah, like you were saying, like a freshness to them, or like a tangible feel where, yeah, and like the humor is a big part of it. I do think that that's one of the biggest issues in sci-fi. Everything is so serious, and you're like, just
Yeah.
the feature. I'm sure people still have senses of humor.
I mean, one of my friends, he's a very talented writer. He says to me, "Oh, don't mix genres," but I really disagree. I actually think when you look at the greatest musicals or the greatest movie, if you want, if you look at something like Wicked, like I'm not particularly into musicals, but there are, the songs, drama, comedy. I mean, they throw it at you, and no wonder it ends up being fantastic. The hard thing, of course, is juggling the different aspects. That really is hard to get right, I think. But I think that it's good to mix genres. In terms of character, it's partly just an idea that falls into my head, but then I do start sculpting it because, we have this woman who's healed someone of tuberculosis. That's the framework. And then a doctor is sent to investigate. Well, when I wrote the first draft, I'm like, well, this doctor's a cynic. And then I thought, well, why is he a cynic? And then I thought, well, it'd be really good if he really does think that women should not be educated, which was a belief of the time, but then it just adds another dynamic. So it's a mixture of intuition mixed with then sculpting things into a very clear point of view. And then I do think that there's this old script writing rule which says you should be able to pick any line of dialogue anywhere in a script and you'll know which character has said it. Now, people often mistake that thinking, oh, it's something to do with their accent and how they say things. But it's actually, in my mind, it's their point of view, that you should always know in every line you can feel their point of view coming across. So that's one thing I'm always trying to be aware of.
And another thing is in terms of sort of, okay, so you've come from these very specific backgrounds, performance, comedy, and again, they're all so useful, and and magic, which is the big one, because it's such a visual way of processing. In terms of then, like, being drawn into this, like, I mean, so many of us in this space are hyphenates because it's so fluid and it's so there's so much to kind of move around in here. Like, do you feel yourself sort of being drawn in that direction, or do you just very much see like the world as kind of like an open set of projects, and whatever comes up next, be it your next show or your next film, is bubbling over, or do you really feel that kind of draw of filmmaking?
I think I feel a draw to it because I think being a magician is a little bit limited on what you can say. You can't really have a theme of women in the workplace whilst doing a card trick. It's pretty tricky to. I mean, I'm sure someone can do it, but it's quite hard to like. Whereas you can do that within a short film, even albeit a folk horror. So I find that as time goes on, I'm sort of wanting to do more intelligent stories, and of course, a film is a better canvas to do that kind of thing.
And it is such a strong feminist narrative that when I saw your name written down, I was like, she's fabulous, Ali. And then I was like, oh, Google. I was like, oh, I didn't realize. And what an interesting background.
I that bit though was a later addition. I originally had the story, and then that just kind of evolved from it. I don't go in with a theme. I had really the horror story first, and then that came out because I heard the story of the Edinburgh Seven, who were the first 7 women in Britain to qualify as doctors, and that they weren't allowed to practice. And they actively tried to stop them practicing, even though they were qualified. And so when I heard that, I was like, wow, how can I get that into this story? And that's, so it was a bit of a retroactive fit.
And yet you have all that. It's so dense, but it's both tight and entertaining. And like, you're not getting swaths of swaths, I'm saying the wrong word, but you're not getting like overwhelmed with exposition, but it's all just there in that subtext, in the like in the knives of the dialogue. Like, it's just excellent.
Yeah, I mean, the hard thing with the short is it's cramming the exposition in, isn't it? That's the Pearl Comb took a lot. I think the Pearl Comb could have been 40 minutes, and I think I got it down to 20, but it could have easily have been 40. But you have to be really ruthless with yourself. I think one of the good things about Patrick Tolan and Matt Wilkinson, they're really feature producers, and it was lucky that they came on board to do this, and they came on board really because of the writers' strike, and everyone was really quiet. So, but it was very nice of them to do it. But I think they're so used to doing, commercial projects that even though with a short you have the opportunity to be more artistic, having someone like that just saying, look, you can cut here, you can get to this, you can get to that quicker, and trying to be, it's that fine balance between having an artistic look to a film, but also being commercial enough to think, a 13-year-old boy watching this who's used to watching a Marvel film, how do you cut to the chase at the same time? And it's that mixture of the two, I think.
And then finally, I think do you feel like, again, like it's still fresh? Like that was so recently it premiered. And I mean, it went down an absolute treat in FrightFest. Like
I'm so gutted I wasn't at FrightFest. I mean, it went down really well in Finland as well, but I've had so many nice messages, and it's really nice of you to ask me to do the podcast as well. But I've had so many messages from FrightFest. I mean, we're right at the start of the festival journey for the Pearlcomb, so fingers crossed for more stuff to come.
Yeah, it was 500 people. There was a real, like, the second it finished, there was like it was sold out, and it was completely sold out for days and days and days. So people are returning tickets. It was gone. So it was almost full. There's obviously, I would say, a few season people that, like, season ticket holders who didn't make it in. But yeah, it was completely sold out, and there was such there was chuckles, there was laughter, but there was, like, when it finished, when the thing went down, there was such a boost of energy, and everyone moved, and you could feel everyone like bustling with excitement, like with such a kind of strong thing. So it was really, like, it really hit home.
That's great. Yeah, I don't think I've watched it with a crowd that big yet. Yeah, so that that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so
I mean, getting the timing right in the edit on the horror elements it's a real art form, and that took ages. But what I would do is I would work on it, and then in the edit suite, I would ask the runners and the cleaners what they thought. I'd show them different cuts, because I do think there is a point with this stuff where you want someone who knows nothing to give you their honest opinion, and that's normally the right opinion. And so I do that, and I got that from the magician David Copperfield. He used to do the same with his specials. He used to get the janitor in to come and watch the edit, and there is something about that you're just getting a proper person. They've bought their money. They want to see something, and did it work or not? It's really that simple.
And in terms of now, so that, like, I mean, yeah, it's still doing its festival journey. I presume it's like acing it and getting into everything because it's so strong. What sort of next that you're lining up? You're doing interviews. I presume that's like director for hire stuff, but are you developing stories? Do you have a couple more maybe themes or anything like that you want to hash out in shorts, or now are you kind of planning more longer form projects?
Yeah, well, I do have. I've thought of 2 other shorts, and I also do have a feature that I'm working on. Obviously, it's a different ball game with a feature, because you've suddenly got to get even a low-end feature. You've got to get so much money together that you can't do it without industrial amounts of help from seasoned pros.
Oh yeah, like fantasy and horror with effects. Effects, you're like, yeah,
Exactly.
few shekels, all right.
Yes, I mean that's suddenly the bit. I mean, I've just done a budget on a feature, and of course, by far the biggest cost is the VFX, and that's still keeping it down. So I am working on that, but and I'm trying to get it out there in any way that I can. So any meetings that I can come across and people that I can meet, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to watch it. You'll have to come back and chat with us.
Yeah.
It was so wonderful. I mean, the Pearlcomb is going to do exceptionally well on its on its festival journey, and anyone who sees that in a lineup should get a ticket immediately and see that on a big screen because it's just phenomenal.
Well, thanks very much. And I think it's one of those, I was really lucky to work with Dave Miller, the cinematographer. It's one of those films that it demands to be seen on a big screen. He shot it so well. It's incredible. And I only saw it on a big screen myself last week for the first time. And boy, he really pulled it out of the bag, did Dave. He really did.
And spectacular. And again, but I think you're just a really strong storyteller. So that's why I'm 100% excited to see whatever is coming next.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
All the money that you deserve.
I think that the storytelling comes from doing card tricks where people are confused. So you spend a lot of time learning to think how the audience is thinking. And I think that's what's helped me with writing shorts.
Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
And now we get to catch up with LA-based filmmaker Paul Boyd. Have a listen to the trailer of his film Scared to Death.
This place looks perfect for the film.
It's been empty since the 50s, and no one's ever filmed here before. Lucky you. There was a tragedy here.
What happened?
Don't want to spoil the surprise.
Oh, shit! I met a real medium today, a real 12th generation sidekick.
I usually charge $2,500 for a full seance.
Why not hold a real seance for the actors?
You are a PA. Now go and make my coffee. Action.
I am the Grog, and I am back in my new film, Dead House.
Use the back of your throat like you do when you yell at women.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lena Cooper.
Oh, darling, you need no introduction.
I've never actually been to a seance. It would help ground me to my character.
I have already arranged for all of us to attend a real seance in a real haunted house.
Count me in. The Grog loves an adventure.
The seance! That was my idea.
Come on, would you just stop being a big baby?
I quit.
All right, wait. Oh, come on.
I'm only gonna do it if I get to shoot the seance with the cameras and I get to direct behind the scenes.
5 willing participants.
I'm so scared.
Oh, that's gonna be you, demon! This is all craziness in our head! Where are the children?
Remind me why all the cameras are up here again? The seance is on the ground floor.
You never know.
Don't be afraid.
So thanks so much for chatting with us.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
So you got to come home for a really wonderful screening. Tell me a little bit about what the experience was like at the festival.
Oh, it was great. They really welcomed us with open arms. And, I was born in Glasgow and raised there, but have lived in Los Angeles for over 30 years. So, I wasn't sure, especially the comedy, horror. I didn't know, it's kind of the jokes and it's not general comedy. It's kind of a little out there. So, but no, it was great. The audience loved it. And it was just a fun experience to be back home. I had like 10 family members came to see it, that was the most nerve-wracking of all was having that lot come down. But no, it was great. It was a lot of fun.
And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your career. So you've been doing music videos and commercials in LA.
I started in London in the late 80s. I was a student at St. Martin's School of Art, and I started making music videos late 89. And because I wasn't a writer, I had a camera since I was a kid, but I didn't really think about movies. I thought about wanting to make them, but I had no idea. So for years, I just did videos and commercials while I taught myself to write and worked with some of the biggest artists in the world and toured and traveled all around the world shooting those. So that was a great experience. It was like a sketchbook, really, to kind of learn camera and all aspects of film while I taught myself to write. So that's how it started.
And in terms of commercials, when you were coming in, would it mostly be directing photography or would you pitch commercials yourself?
No. The way that it works over here, it was, the ad agencies pitch for directors and, they get 4 or 5 directors they'll send them the storyboard and they say, okay, give me your feedback and how would you do the job? And the guy that I worked with, it was a company called Atlas Films. I used to be at a big company in LA called Propaganda Films in the 90s with David Fincher, Michael Bay. There was like 10 of us. But they never rep me for commercials because I was making so much money doing videos that I had to go to a different company and just started working straight away. And it was mostly fashion, automotive, beauty, and hair because of all the videos I did. I worked with a lot of women, so I was doing a lot of very high-end fashion, and that was part of the transition. At the time, I did all the big videos for an artist called Shania Twain, and those crossed over and kind of opened the door for me to get Revlon and Clairol and L'Oreal and all that kind of stuff because of the beauty.
Wow. And it
Yeah.
is how you're telling stories visually on screen. Does this hone your creative voice elsewhere when you have more control over it? Are you picking up tricks and tips?
I think so. I mean, I think that was the point of doing videos for so long, was learning all aspects of filmmaking, from camera lighting, casting, wardrobe, makeup, props, set design. We did everything. So it was good. I mean, I already knew the basics because I'd been filming since I was little, but really honing my voice, my fingerprint was really what it was. Because I think, as a filmmaker, it's knowing your own voice, what you want to say, how you want to say it. That it was that really. Because at school, I was a dropout. I was a truant. I just couldn't get my head together as a kid. It was probably ADHD. So it took me a long time to learn to write, to actually sit down and do it. And then the only way to do it is to sit down and do it. There's no shortcut to learning how to write screenplays or novels. So that was a process. And but that's always been the journey for me. I've been offered films to direct from other writers like Filmmakers. McCrae. I've never been interested. I just want to have a singular vision. I just want to do my own stuff.
Interesting. I know I saw you co-wrote with another writer as well. So would that very much so be something that you tried and isn't for you, or is that just that one specific?
No, that was a little $100,000 movie we did called I Challenge Her, and she was my girlfriend at the time, and she's a writer, and we were like, there's a couple of movies I tried to get made that didn't happen, so we're like, screw it, let's just make one. So, we kind of wrote the story together, and I wrote the screenplay, and then that was it. So, but yeah, I mean, I actually have a new film that we just filmed in May that was also written with the same writer at the same time that we just made. So I'm totally open to collaboration. You know what I mean? I mean, I know what I want to do, but collaborating with other people is fine. I'm just not really interested in directing other people's movies that other people have written. To me, it's a more personal journey than that.
That you want to build the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've written 20 scripts. So to me, I already have it mapped out what I want to do. We'll see if I get there. We'll see if it happens. But, it's been like that. For me, it's not enough just to be hired as a director. It's the whole story. It's everything. But, of course, that's much more challenging for a company to put money behind a director, writer, producer. It's like, they have so much control over the vision that sometimes most films are put together by producers that have the writer, then hire the director. So they have a little bit more sway. But for me, it's not even about control. It's just, I love doing it. It's like my hobby as much as my career. You know what I mean? I'm so into the process that it's more to do with that, with me just wanting to get my hands dirty. It's very DIY.
Yeah.
Very.
But very interesting. And I want to go back because I think you said that that's very interesting. So you didn't come at it from a academic film school. You didn't enter the industry through those channels. Talk to me about like that first break then, like that very, very first break, your first.
When I was at St. Martin's, I studied fine art film. I thought I was going to be a painter, at 17, 18, but all my paintings were triptychs. They were like storyboards. So my teacher was like, you're a filmmaker, really, you have to embrace that. So I did, and then made a movie while I was at school. And then when I came out of school, I walked around all the production companies with a projector and my 16mm film, and I'm like, hey, watch my film. And this little company took me on, and it was immediate. It was like as soon as they put me out there. I mean, this is 1989. It wasn't like it is now. There was much less directors. There was a ton of music. Everyone was making music videos. I mean, they were making music videos even if they didn't get on the TV because it was they were promotional pop promos. They needed them to promote. It's very different than it is now. So that was it. I had this one company called Wicked Films, this producer, Nikki Bell and Paul Tribitz. And Paul Tribitz is a big movie director now, but big movie producer. But Nikki Bell passed away, unfortunately, when we first went to LA. But that was it. Nikki Bell saw my work and he just got behind me. He goes, you're a director. It was the first person to ever say it. And that was it. It just took the belief of one other person to convince me to, okay, I'm going to live in a one-bedroom shack. I'm going to put on, I quit everything just to do it. So it was really that, and that's why to me, I'm a mentor to a lot of people too, because that encouragement, that initial push is so important to get you going, to have you believe in yourself and to have the confidence to just do it, which is it's a stumbling block for most people.
There's so much rejection that if you
Yeah.
don't, if you don't have that belief that it can wear away, and that someone else believing in you and getting you across the line, because
Yeah.
that's it. Then the rest is graft. But sounds like you've been grafting very hard, 20 screenplays. So you're saying this is your first horror that you filmed, but are there many other horrors in the drawer?
Yeah, there's definitely about 5 or 6 that I've written, but this was the first one, and it took a long time. It took 10 years for us to even get this thing going because we were going to do it for, no money at first and shoot it in our own house because it was based on Scared to Death is based on real experiences that we had when we bought a house. My ex-wife and I, we bought a house, and the person that sold it to us told us the day we moved in that it was haunted. He didn't release the information before. Said, oh, it was always poltergeist stuff here in the 70s. This place was a brothel in the 30s, and there was a prostitute that was killed, and she haunts the place. So we moved in going, oh my God. And I wasn't a believer, but my wife and my kids, they all were. So they saw stuff and I never did. So it was really that idea of believing is seeing. The more you believe in things, they're going to manifest, because your brain is what sees, not your eyes. That's kind of the concept of the film, is how fear makes you can, trigger imagery, spectral images. Because they believed it. Everything that my family saw in the house, they believed it was real. But for me, I would walk around the house at night looking in the mirrors, trying to see if there was anything, and I never saw anything. So,
Wow.
so it came from there. Oh, let's just do it for $50,000. We'll do it in the house. We'll shoot it in our own house. We'll work with our friends, and then we wrote it, and then it just developed into something bigger. But it still took a long time, because of the genre being horror comedy. It's not straight up genre piece. It kind of walks this zany line. It's a little bit kind of, farcical, and it's over the top. But that's what it was meant to be. It's kind of a love letter to horror movies. It's a piss take, it's more fun. I like the hybrid. I like the idea of, smashing two different things together.
And tell me about the drafts of the script before you came up. I know your lead character had a very different incarnation in an earlier draft. The grog.
Grog, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Grog was actually, it's an interesting story. Kurt Deimer, that plays the Grog, is an actor, and he's also a musician. He's like a self-made guy in America, made his money through oil, and now, at his age, he's like, okay, I'm going to live my dream. So he's making films, he's starring, and he's touring with his rock band. So I just happened to meet him. I did a couple of videos with him, met him, and we just hit it off. It was a symbiotic thing. So the script originally had a female stunt woman in that role, but when I met Kurt, and he's such a character, I was like, we could replace that character with you and make you the person that plays the monster in all the movies. So no one knows really who you are because you're always the monster. But horror aficionados and people, they do. So it was this kind of sense of humor of, oh, let's bring this guy in who's been in all these movies, and his line is, oh, this reminds me of a movie. That was kind of the running joke through the film is he's in the, and he's kind of the heart of the movie too. That was another thing. Most horror films, it's just teenage kids getting killed by something in the woods, people you don't really care about. But in this, it was a little different. We tried to make these sympathetic characters, and he's this kind of tattooed biker looking guy with a heart of gold. So the audience really responded to him. Like they really have. And we've done all this marketing material. We created all this fake stuff where we put him on Larry King and Charlie. Like all that's going to about to start launching virally, where we put it on TikTok and stuff before the film comes out at the end of the year.
God, that's fabulous. So you raised 50,000 originally to get this across the line, and then in terms of you said it became bigger. How?
No, that was originally, we were going to do it in my own house for 50,000, but no, that changed when Kurt and that got involved, and put together a proper budget, but we still did it on a micro budget. It was still very, very little, and we shot for 20 days. I mean, it was real bare bones. But Kurt, ended up funding the movie, and he's now funded another one that we've done. I've written a bunch of scripts with him, so we've kind of set up a little company together. And yeah, and we're planning to come over to Scotland. There's a film I'm going to be shooting in Scotland in the next year.
That's so much fun. What a great way to retire, to make films, to create your own content in another space. So what's interesting as well is the house where it shoots as a location. That you like, I know, like at that time when it was being shot, that there was a lot of fires, that there was a lot of like things up in the air, but it managed to survive so that it could make it in the film.
Actually, the fires were this year.
Oh,
We've shot in 24, I think, and at the end of 23, and in a place called Altadena, in the first house built in Altadena in 1883. It was just rolling fields up there when this house was built. And we filmed for 20 days, and it rained every day, but it didn't really matter because we were inside. But it was the worst weather I've ever seen in my life in LA, and we were inside. So it was just incredible how that worked out. And the 2 days that we filmed outside are the only days that it didn't rain. So it was kind of this weird magical experience. And then at the beginning of this year, Altadena burned to the ground, and that house survived.
Wow. Yeah, that was I heard that. I was like,
burned.
that sounds magic that it's so old.
Yeah, and I mean, literally every house next to it is burnt to the ground, and it's stood. It was bizarre. It's bizarre. Some of the sides burnt, but it didn't raise it.
Wow.
And yeah, so.
And in terms of then the shoot itself, so 20 days of shooting, and there was improv. I know you were talking about doing improv with some of the characters up. How, like,
yeah, I mean, I had a script. We had a script, but I mean, it writing for 7 different characters all on screen at the same time. I kind of knew the characters, but I wanted the actors to be free to say it in their own words, as long as, the intent got across. I'm not like a dialogue Nazi. Like, there's some directors that it's all about the dialogue. For me, it's just part of it, like expression. If it can be said without dialogue, with a look, it's better for me. So I also, you're talking about working with actors with 20, 30, 40 years experience, got to let them bring something to the table. And I just find that allowing actors to improvise really, it's the glue that binds for me. It gives them, they invest more in the role.
But was that tricky then in the edit room with that many, like in terms of blocking and
definitely
matching of shots?
Yeah, definitely. But I did so much coverage. I mean, I shot with 3 cameras.
Wow.
At the same time, like we did it like television. We so that I got the coverage, because you put a bunch of people sitting around the table, it becomes really complicated how to cover that with all the eye lines of every person. It's like it took up a lot of time. So I just felt, and it's a dialogue heavy movie, so I just felt, hey, just let them put as much of themselves into it as possible.
Then was the grade very difficult when you're like trying to, or like even lighting then to, with effects and things like that? Then does that?
We didn't do much of that. No, our lighting was pretty set. We went in the house, we set all the lights, which were all LEDs, and then all the lights were controlled through an iPad that we, walked with the camera, so I could adjust at any point, any light in any room. But it was shot at night. All the windows are boarded up, so it's kind of, it is a consistent look in the house. All the lamps are flickering, so and I've been lighting for 30 years. So that's the easiest thing for me, is knowing how to set a look and how to frame it. And so no, that was fairly consistent. And we had a cinematographer. Like, I usually shoot all my own stuff, but on this one we brought in Stephen Poster, who did Donnie Darko, and he's done so many movies. He did second unit on Close Encounters, he told me when we were on the shoot. And then I worked with this gaffer called Jim Planette, who I mean, he did Young Frankenstein, Braveheart, Ocean's 11. I mean, this gaffer was a legend, and so it was a brilliant tour. And they were 2 old dudes, so it was like working with these old wizards, and then our young camera crew. So I just think it's you work with people with that much experience. It's just and let them do what they do. They bring so much to the table.
And in terms of a film like this as well, pacing for the to get both the comedy and the tension, and it is a much longer form of storytelling. What was the edit like? Did you have to kill many darlings?
Yeah,
You had lots of
cut,
coverage?
yeah, we cut probably 15 minutes of the film, and yeah, I mean, the the edit took a long time. It took us over a year because
Wow.
we had a bunch of post effects and we didn't really have money, so we had to be really creative and get a lot of favors. And again, because there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of it had to be cut because it was just superfluous. It was just ramblings. That it's funny. I think there's three movies: is the one that you write, the one you shoot, and the one you end up with. I mean, it's like that for me. I mean, I'm sure there are some that stick to the script, but I like that fluidity. It's kind of like a ball of clay. But yeah, and I mean, it took us time just to whittle it. It was like carving, really. It's just whittling it down and taking off the fat and the pieces that, we don't really need that, and killing the babies, as they say. It was hard, but you learn a lot in editing. It's that process of, because I'm very involved in the shooting too. I do all the storyboards. So, editing is really where the film is made,
And
to
in
be honest.
terms of the difference between this and your other drama projects, was like, did you notice something tonally, like in terms of kind of your inspiration in the genre and that shift in tone? Did that take some getting used to? Is that something that you kind of had figured out from all the different formats you've worked in before?
Well, I mean, I knew tonally where I wanted it to go. I knew because writing the characters, each character has a point of view and a certain perspective. So you write based around that, right? The characters inform you what they say and how they react and etc. based on the character that you've shaped. But then you bring in an actor and then they make the character what they want to make the character. You got to let them do that. That's why people typecast. Oh, they get a gangster looking guy to play a gangster. It's easier for them, for the audience. But for me, I'm kind of trying to go against the grain a little and try and make the characters a little tweaked and more interesting. But yeah, it's doing comedy is the hard. I never ever thought I would write comedy. I mean, honestly, I don't even really watch. I mean, I like comedies. Who doesn't? But I'm more drama, thriller, action. But I don't know. Like my second film, I Challenger, was a comedy, was a stoner comedy. My first film, Vicious Circle, was a drama. The film I just did was a drama. There's another one in between. So yeah, it's a different comedy is so hard. It's so hard, especially if you're not just like Will Ferrell, they're not just saying funny lines that
Yeah.
make you laugh. The lines are so funny because they're comedians. This wasn't the case. These are not comedians in my film. These are like dramatic and horror actors playing comedy. So it was more implied rather than jokes. It was more behavioral comedy than, slapstick. But it was definitely had a tongue in cheek. It was definitely tongue in cheek.
I could hear that kind of dry Scottish humor,
Right.
that like it, that real
Yeah.
sarcastic. We have it too. Like it's very
Oh yeah.
much so part of our like
Yeah.
lexicon. I could feel that in there, like in those beats
They,
and in the
and they
pacing
don't
and
have that in America, and I
no.
think because that was the thing with all the sales agents, we like it was hard. Like we're releasing the film this fall, but like we took it to Blunt, we took it everywhere. No one. They were all like, "What is this?" Like, because the horror companies want horror movies. This is what is more of a I think it turned out more of a comedy than a horror, really. It's wrapped in a horror jacket, but it's more kind of you know, off the wall, more kind of goofy. But that's what I wanted. Like, I'm not interested in making like an Eli Roth type horror. I mean, I'll watch that, but it's just for me, it's just not interesting to me. Do you know what I mean? This was more a stud people in the film industry. They really like they say write about what you know. These are all my peers. It's a film crew, it's actors, I know that world. I know the back talk and the conflicts and all that, so that became the horror. Like you're scared to death of their boss is really the concept of the film. She's so scary. But then you begin to understand what's wrong with her. But again, it's like, how do you not spoon feed it? how do you still get compassion for your actors when they're being silly and running around a haunted house and still make people care for them and at least like them? It's, you know, that's a challenge. I mean, that's why I love filmmaking, because it's not cut and dry. It's kind of like I don't know, it's an amorphous thing for me. You know, I think it grows from when it's written. It grows, and the discoveries that you make on set of like, oh well, this works, this doesn't work. Shit, you know, there was a lot of that in Scared to Death of like, okay, how do we temper these performances? How do I, you know, but that's the magic of it, is you just have to trust your instinct and the people you work with.
What is next? Do you feel like this box is ticked in terms of you've achieved this type of film? Is it now you've got a hunger for horror? Is there like a drama or romantic comedy dancing
Well, the one
around these things?
I just made a film called Relapse, which was set in a house. It's about a female musician who relapses onto opioids after being sober for a couple of years. She was involved in a bus crash with her band. A couple of her bandmates died, and she's gotten to the point where she's not on tour, she's not making money, she has to sell her house, and she's in her manager's house, and she's been told to get on social media, so she uploads a nervous breakdown onto social media, starts taking drugs, and uploads everything, and there's a big intervention. So that I'm about to sit with the editor, but we did that in May. We did that in 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and we got amazing actors in the film. Like really, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but really fantastic Hollywood actors all came and stepped up to do it. So, and that's a pure drama, tragedy. There's nothing funny about it at all. It's actually what's concerning me is it may be too intense, because I did another film called Weird Gathered Here Today during COVID, and it was about death at a distance. It was about a patriarch dying on a Zoom call because 6 of my friends, that happened to them. You know, they couldn't get in the hospital. They were watching their parents die on these calls. So I made a film about that. And that entire film is improv. We did it in 3 days, 3 9-hour conference calls. I created all the characters, and then they knew what what was meant to be said, and they just improv the whole thing. And that got released, and that, but again, no one wants to see that because it's, you know, we just came out. It's so hardcore. But that to me is what makes me a filmmaker, because I have to respond to what's going on. Do you know what I mean? It's not about, oh, let's just make a piece of entertainment. I'm like, I want to give my insight on this story and what I've observed and how it's happened to me, and you know, just to try and connect to the horror of that, of just not being able to, you know, we use these devices, we communicate with them every day. It's, you know, it's amazing. We're in communication more, but we spend less time together as people because we're on these devices. And is what happened. It was like they wouldn't even let people in the hospital next to their parents that were dying. It was, you know, so you're watching someone die on a phone, on a computer. You know, that was just, you know, I had to do it. And we did it during COVID. All the actors were at home. Everyone was at home on their computer for the film. No one, it was all done via Zoom and Google Meet. So, you know, I love the experimentation. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of part of the process for me.
In the play. And what is next for Scared to Death? Where is it going now?
We're releasing it this fall, winter. Here, we're doing 3 event screenings in 3 different cities. And then we're going to take it from there. We might expand it and take it into more depending on our events, and then it will be streaming. But it's kind of a self-release right now. We, rather than make a shitty deal with a shitty company, we're just going to do it ourselves and, you know, put on events. And he's in a band, he's going to play at the screenings. We're going to just kind of grassroots it. Yeah. And then start putting all of our marketing comedic stuff, which is really funny. We'll start putting that on and see if we can build a groundswell, and then, you know, but we've already kind of accepted the fact that we're going to be doing this ourselves, and you know, that's okay, because at least we know we'll do it right. You know, we know that we'll pay attention to it, we'll tick all the boxes, and then we'll just see how it goes. The good thing about the Grog or Kurt is that he's like me, he's realistic. You know what I mean? He's been in the business a long time. He knows that it's a journey and that it's a process. And if you get luck and success overnight, that's wonderful, but it's not the norm. You know, the norm is a graft, you know, a hard-working graft. But, you know, look, I've been doing it so long at this point in my life, it's kind of all I want to do. Do you know what I mean? Rather than, oh, let me make some extra money making commercials and videos. I'm just over it. You know what I mean? I just want to. So I'm going to start doing a bunch of vertical content. I'm going to start expanding into television and doing our own thing in that department. We have a lot of stuff coming up. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. And it sounds as well like it's the love of the format and the love of creating that is fueling, which is
that's it. That's
great,
it.
which makes the most interesting things.
Right. Yeah. And it's so, I mean, so I feel so fortunate to be able to do that. But I've worked my whole life to do it. I'm not sitting here on millions of dollars. We're month to month. We are live like everybody else, but we're doing what we want to do and loving what we do, and that's what matters. It's like you only have one life. You know what I mean? It's like you got to try living it, doing what you want to do, and that's why whether it's 100,000 or 5 million, it doesn't matter to me. It's like the film we just did, Relapse. We did that movie for I think 130, 140,000, and it didn't matter because the amount of people that we got to participate for a third of their rate, because they want to do it, not because they're desperate for work. They just want to be part of the project. So to me, that's it. It's, it takes a village. And if you have that surrounded by that team of people that are willing to jump on board, then there's no stopping you. That's what I say to everybody who wants to be a filmmaker. Grab a phone, grab your friends, and go do it over a weekend. Amazing. You'd be surprised, right?
Well, yeah, that's a great ending. But thank you so much. That's fabulous.
Thanks, Gemma. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. I really, appreciate it. Mucho.
Thank you so much for listening. And for news, reviews, and interviews, make sure to check out filmireland.ie.